Bill Belichick.
Thank you.
He is not going to get a head coaching job. It does not appear. Washington is still open. Seattle is still open. That's something that we would hope to hear about this week, I would assume, that those would be done, because typically the NFL does not make hires during Super Bowl week. It's considered a distraction. The Adam Schefter had a word yesterday, because everybody's been expecting Ben Johnson was going to get the Washington job, and that was a slam dunk. And Schefter kind of just poured a little cold water on it. He's like, well, I don't know that that's just a total guarantee. Like, let's be a little patient. And Dan Quinn's supposed to be in Washington today for his in-person interview. So are they wanting to see what Dan Quinn has to offer? Are they circling back on Belichick? Like, who knows what's happening there? But the issue with Bill Belichick was covered by Charles Robinson at the end of last week, who's pretty well connected just throughout the league. He's got good sources to be able to talk to various teams and get a beat on why this is an issue.
Yahoo!
So he wrote this article the other day and says, as Falcons pass on Bill Belichick, it's clear what is shutting him out of this NFL head coaching hiring cycle. He says, the Dallas Cowboys job never opened. The Chargers vacancy was never on the table. Falcons chose to go another way. And now with 2 coaching jobs remaining, it's looking more feasible than ever that the 2024 NFL hiring cycle could leave Bill Belichick behind. The reasons: time and power. Belichick has a short supply of one and continues to seek an abundance of the other. That's the takeaway from Belichick's pair of meetings with the Falcons, which ultimately led team owner Arthur Blank to reconsider his quest to secure the heavy-hitting culture architect who boasts a titanic resume. Despite 2 meetings, the Falcons continued to scour and refine their list of candidates this week, igniting a belief in league and agent circles that the organization was seriously considering options beyond Belichick. Obviously, then they go to Raheem Morris. But the word from this is that Belichick is, for all of the discussion about, when Michael Lombardi tells us, yeah, if you know what you're talking about, he'll defer to you. He'll let you do this. That is not what he is putting off to teams right now. Is that
he is the top dog in charge.
He is the guy, and that he wants to have these personnel decisions, and he wants to change organizational structure. And this is the concern I felt like with the potential Belichick hire here in Dallas, was not just the front office, but
this
also
is an amazing power struggle.
It is
amazing.
And at what point do you blink, or do you just say, I'm Bill F. and Belichick, I'm not going to blink for anything. If you're not going to meet my demands, I'm not going to.
What if he gets frozen out? Like no one ever hires him again. He gets frozen out because of the structure that he wants.
What he wants. I mean, that's honestly, there are teams that want to be able to have he would completely blow up the entire structure. And I heard Michael Lombardi talking about this week, where he was like, this is an old George Young thing. It's cover your desk. Protect your desk at all costs. Like, this is like Rich McKay in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Not allowing, like, he's in Arthur Blank's ear.
Yeah.
No,
a guy who's 5 games over 500 in the last 20 years has got Arthur Blank's ear, and he's like, I'm protecting my desk. You're not going to bring Bill Belichick in here, and I'm going to lose my job.
Which that has changed, apparently, in the process of hiring Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris and one of the other executives that they hired, the organizational tweak that they had apparently last week, according to reports, is that those people now report directly to Arthur Blank and skip over Rich McKay. So Rich McKay is starting to kind of get shuffled out a little bit. But Belichick basically wants to, and this is what I figured, the Patriot way, the Patriot culture, it's just as cultish as the TB12 method. And so I think that it was going to be critical to Belichick to not just have some personnel control, but also to be able to say, I need guys who fit my culture and what I do, and I don't have time here to waste trying to try something different. We need to get this started now, tear things down and rebuild it to my specifications. And I think that was something that there was going to be resistance here in Dallas to if the job came over.
Okay, so you come here and you're Belichick. What are you tearing down? Like, give me some examples. What do we have to tear down? You're not tearing anything down. You got 12-5, and you can alter. You can alter to put us over the top. We have to take 4 steps backwards. And you figure out this year who are your Patriot guys. You figure out the Patriot way. You're not just jettisoning everyone. We're not starting over. You tinker, you add to it, you be the finishing piece. We're not going backwards. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, in terms of organizational structure, like just from that front, like you're talking about changing up the way that the scouting process is done, the selection of players, which he does not have a great history of.
And then you got to be Arthur Blank or these owners and say to Belichick, like, imagine saying in that room, you suck as a draft evaluator because of your history of drafts. How do you say that to him, right?
Yeah.
You're sitting there, that uncomfortable conversation, and you got to say, because the common sense tells you got to tell him, you have a draft problem. Your personnel was awful. Here are the numbers. We want you to work with someone. Why do you think you've struggled? Why? I'm always fascinated to know what is asked between the two sides in these interviews. Why do you think your draft history recently is so terrible? And what would he say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, I would assume that, like anything else, it's just like anything. I think that probably Belichick, everybody in that moment is looking to cover their bases without sounding like they're making excuses. So he'd probably try to, talk about like, well, this didn't work out here. We did this, but like, this is why our evaluation. He would probably lean really heavily into their process that led to that and show this is why we had every indication. So this is an outlier that it didn't go correctly.
I mean, he could also say like, he could refute they've not had a player sign a second contract over the last 10 years. Well, we had Joe. We drafted Joe Tooney. We didn't sign him. He was too expensive. We drafted Jamie Collins. We didn't re-sign him. He went somewhere else. We drafted Chandler Jones. We didn't re-sign him. He went somewhere else. They had guys that they drafted that got second contracts elsewhere because they didn't want to or couldn't afford to or for whatever reason. Right?
Yeah, and here's
that's the out he could use for that.
And when we talk about rebuilding to his specifications outside of just the scouting process, let's say on the football field, like this group of players that, okay, he's not talking about just adding to it. He's talking about changing it. So without knowing specifics of his thought process, this is just like an example of if we heard these reports coming out, I don't think any of us would be surprised. Let's say he gets here to Dallas and he says, I need 3-4 personnel. So I need to clear out these defensive ends. I don't think, for whatever reason, I don't think DeMarcus Lawrence can set the edge with his hand in the ground as a 3-4 guy. I need to move on from DeMarcus Lawrence.
Run a 3-4 anymore?
Who? Belichick? I'm just saying he's done it consistently throughout his career. And if he wants to use Micah Parsons like Lawrence Taylor, that would be what it'd be. I would guess that he would probably use safeties different, which means you're going to have to change your safeties than what Dan Quinn had done. Let's say he gets here, and I don't know if this would be his opinion, but he was a big Stephon Gilmore fan. He's always liked cerebral corners and guys who are high IQ players. Trayvon Diggs is considered a bit of a gambler. Deron Bland is sometimes considered a bit of a gambler. What if he comes here and goes, I can't work with these guys? Like Diggs, like you got to go get me draft picks for Diggs because this isn't going to work. And I don't know that he would say that, but those are the types of things that I think if he got here, we'd start hearing certain moves that people would be like, why? Why are you going to move that player? Because it doesn't fit your culture or your way.
Did you see a story that maybe the Giant possibility down the road may not happen?
Yeah, and this is from the Jordan Rannon.
Yeah.
He is the Giants' kind of Todd Archer for ESPN.
Let's not get carried away.
And he wrote this. He said, I've heard this multiple times in the past 5 or 6, 7 years. And the dirty little secret about Bill and the Giants is that he has great affinity and memories, but he doesn't look at the Giants the same way he used to when he was here. And he goes on to say he's directly told that to people. Be careful about the organization and their setup and the way it's run. And that's been relayed on multiple occasions. So, yeah, he loves the Giants. He has great memories for the past, but it doesn't mean that he is bat-esque crazy in love with the organization right now. So that may keep him from the Giants?
Sure. I would also say that it's something that has been said about his culture, too. And the way that he's built things up, not just because of the coaching staff, like we talked about. There is an annoyance across personnel circles in the league that like people buy into the Patriot way. They're just like, it's such a stupid method. It's not even a real method. It's borderline cultish, and the results don't match up. The process is bad. The coach doesn't know what he's looking at anymore, and it just irritates personnel people across the league that like there's this revered status for something that they think is. The results say is not good.
So, you got to make an either-or decision, and I'm still willing to take all that bad. And the good is I'm going to get a guy who is never going to be outdone on game day and in game prep. All the little small. Hopefully, Bill Belichick, if this ever happened, would give enough credit to Will McClay and be like, "You're the man. You do a great job. There's no reason to change stuff. This is what I like. I'd like you to go find that within my parameters." But then you trade for all these game day, game management situations that cost teams this past weekend, and we always talk about with Mike McCarthy and Jason Garrett, all that stuff is fixed for the most part, in my opinion. So you decide what you want. Do you want this unpleasant jackass culture where people may be miserable and you mess up the way things are done in terms of scouting and drafting, and you get all the game day fixes and out coaching and out doing the other sideline every week? Or you want a little bit lax in those details and have things the way you have them in the front office with the structure? That's your trade-off. You pick.
Yeah,
I don't know that he's a great game, like...
Oh, I view Belichick as like he's the lawyer who's going to find the like legal loophole.
Yeah, he's going to find a
what
loophole.
The hell?
Absolutely.
But
absolutely. You know, I mean,
then why is he the greatest coach of all time? Don't just say Tom Brady. Like, if I asked you who is the greatest coach of all time, you'd say Belichick. What's the reason for it then?
I mean, I think Tom Brady's a major reason for it.
Okay.
I mean, I do believe that. I mean, look, he.
But if I give that, what makes him a great coach?
I think in an era
it's not
that
drafting.
is no longer today.
Yeah.
His defenses were incredible at taking advantage of the rules. The rules are such now that defenses can't take advantage of the rules anymore. And I do think that he has slipped a little bit, and the game has passed that by.
Okay.
Not necessarily passed him by, but passed that by. Like, his greatest trait, defense, was in an era of a much more balanced offense. And now the defenses are much more unstable than they ever have been. And I think he is a victim of that.